Hello, everybody. Today's topic, obviously, as you see, is about personality and intelligence. So let me make this full screen. All right. So why personality matters? Obviously, many of you have studied personality and other individual differences in other contexts, but here again, we want to look at it from an organizational perspective. Um, One of the most important topics in organizational behavior is understanding how to motivate people. You remember that from the class on leadership. And if you again recall, hopefully, from the discussion of transformational leadership, one of the most important central aspects of a transformational leader was individual consideration, being able to speaking to different types of personalities and um, basically motivating different types of individuals. So, personality and intelligence are important drivers for differences among individuals. And you can tell, I mean, the statistic shows that about 30% of the employers right now are using certain types of personality tests when they hire individuals. And why are they doing that? Because they want to make sure um, they hire the right person for the right type of position. This also applies to you sitting in the other side of the spectrum. Next year or this year, when you're looking at jobs, the offers, you got to ask yourself whether that's the right fit for the type of personality you have. And we will discuss that further. Very simple examples. If you're working in a kitchen, you may need to have different types of personality, not just different types of knowledge. We're not looking at that at this point. Then a person who is working in a call center, then a person who is working as a web developer. For example, if you're working in a kitchen, you need to handle a lot of stress. You tend to be working in collaborative and a very intensive collaboration. And if you're a chef in that kitchen, you tend to be different from other people because you need to have certain leadership abilities. And another really important point here is we have different personalities, and sometimes we have to work for different types of organizations. If you remember, organizations also have some form of personality. One aspect of it is their culture. So there should be a fit between your personality and the personality of the organization, which can be understood through the lens of culture. This quote from the CEO of Southwest is very telling. We look for people with a sense of humor who do not take themselves too seriously. So this is an example from a Southwest flight attendant.
Good evening, folks. Welcome aboard Southwest Airlines Flight 372, service to Oklahoma City. Those of you that have flown us before know that we do things a little bit differently here on Southwest. Some of us tell jokes, some of us sing, some of us just stand there and look beautiful. I, unfortunately, can do none of those. So here's the one thing that I do know how to do. We're going to shake things up a little bit. I need a little audience participation. Otherwise, this is not going to go over well at all. So here's what I need, especially you guys in the front because you know what's coming. All right, I need a beat. All right? All I need you to do is stomp and clap, and I'm going to do the rest because I've had 5 flights today, and I just cannot do the regular boring announcement again. Otherwise, I'm going to put myself to sleep. So, you guys with me? All right. So give me a stomp, clap, stomp, clap. Come on, stomp, clap, stomp, clap. They don't beat there. There you go. Keep that going. This is Flight 372 on SWA. The flight attendants on board serving you today. Teresa in the middle, David in the back, My name is David, and I'm here to tell you that shortly after takeoff, first things first, there's soft drinks and coffee to quench your thirst. But if you want another kind of drink, then just holler. Alcoholic beverages will be $4. If a Monster Energy drink is your plan, that'll be $3, and you get the whole can. We won't take your cash, you gotta pay with plastic. If you have a coupon, then that's fantastic. We know you're ready to get to new places. Open up the bin, put away your suitcases. Carry on items, go under the seat in front of you, so none of you have things by your feet. If you have a seat on the road with the exit, we're gonna talk to you, so you might as well expect it. You gotta help evacuate in case we need you. If you don't want to, then we're gonna reseat you. Before we leave, our advice is put away your electronic devices. Fasten your seatbelt, then put your trays up. Press the button to make the seat back raise up. Sit back, relax, have a good time.
All right, so what is personality? Personality can be defined as a set of stable characteristics that are driven by internal properties of individuals, and they show themselves in a variety of situations. They show themselves as behaviors. The the common factors in these definitions is they're enduring over time. So if a person is introverted, he will likely remain so for a long period of time. The personality characteristics they influence a person's behavior. These are major determinants of one's behavior. So if you're an introverted person, you tend to establish fewer social connections. And these characteristics persist across various situations. They manifest themselves similarly in wide variety of situations. So if you're an introverted person, you tend to be withdrawn and non-assertive at a party, at a class, or a sport activity. All right. So what defines personality? Where do they come from? They can be rooted in heredity, or they can be shaped by the environment that we grow up in. So basically, genes and the environments. So heredity is an important player here. Who your parents are, who their parents were. And the research shows even if the identical twins, if they are separated at birth, when they come back, even if they grew up in different environments, they may have similar personalities. Some of their personalities is similar. And 50% of our personality is shaped almost by our our background, who your fathers are. So if your parents are both tall, you're more likely to become taller. That's the physical aspect of it. If they're both emotional, you're more likely to be an emotional person. And the thing that we need to keep in mind is the impact of gene is not very linear. It manifests itself in a very complex manner. So we don't know how it really plays out. Environment also um, is also very important. Where you grow up, your childhood experience. Many criminals tend to have gone through a very difficult childhood. Sexual abuser tend to have been abused as child. So your socioeconomic situation, your background, the environment that you've been in, school, athletic teams, churches, these are the examples of places that shapes our experience and also our personality. So there are many different ways to understand one's personality, to dissect a person's personality. Um, but there is a consensus among researchers, organizational researchers, about the importance of these five characteristics. And these as a combination of characteristics enable to assess what type of person is useful for certain type of organizational situations. We are going over them one by one. But before that, I have a surprise for you. You need to go on Sakai now, and if you download this presentation, at the end of this presentation, the last slide, there is a link to a Google survey. And there's only one field that you have to fill out. That's your name. I want to know if you have watch this presentation. All right, by filling out there, or putting your name up there, I will know you have watched this presentation. The first characteristic is extroversion, the first trait. How ongoing you are. Would you get drive energy when you're around other people? This is often considered one of the most important characteristics of a personality. And it's important because extroverts are helpful for certain type of situation. If there's a teamwork involved, if there's a social interaction, they enjoy it, and probably other people enjoy their presence. Introverted, they're also useful for other types of situation, particularly if the work is solitary. There's not much social interaction. A lot of accounting jobs are like that. And these show themselves in how people use ICT. An example is when I did research, I realized that introverted people would pick email before phone conversation. They're much more comfortable with this kind of dyadic channel that doesn't require a lot of social verbal interaction. Conscientiousness is always useful. How driven you are. Do you focus on goals and in a disciplinary manner follow them? Are you a reliable colleague? Are you goal oriented? Are you get a go getter type of person? It's important for achieving successful results and for completing tasks. So, as I said, it's always useful. Um, is affiliated with better job performance in organizational context, and an example that we always focus on is entrepreneurs. So in 697, when we study good examples of entrepreneurship, um, we realize that they are not always the smartest people, or they're not always the most well connected people. They're not always from Harvard, Stanford, or MIT. But what is common among all of them is they're very conscientious, or they are of high conscientiousness. They're very goal oriented, particularly when it comes to what they call black or dark days. They don't give up, they don't flake out, and they continue working on their ideas. Persistent, resilience, these are other associate terms. Agreeableness. This is also an important aspect of our personality. How easygoing, tolerant you are in social interaction. Are you willing to help? Are you sensitive towards other people's feeling? In most cases, there are good team members, people of high agreeableness, and they understand other people. They try not to hurt other people's feeling, but there can be a downside. Let's see if we can watch a little bit about Kenneth from 30 Rock.
Can't both be right unless Hazel is always right. But only because you said so, Mr. Jordan, which means you're right too. And both sides being right is like kissing your sister. A wonderful treat.
All right, so there is a downside to this. And if you remember, we talk about conflicts. Conflicts are not always problematic. Conflicts in certain situations are useful. And these people avoid conflicts, right? They always look for consensus. They don't want to hurt anyone's feeling, and that is not always useful. So that's the potential downside. Emotional stability is always good. Emotional stability is the ability to handle stressful situations under heavy demand. How relaxed are you? How comfortable you are in the face of uncertainty and stress? Or you get easily discouraged, embarrassed by those type of situation? Can you handle crisis well? That's the very clear outcome of emotional stability. And both job satisfaction and job performance are directly correlated with emotional stability. For that reason, emotional stability in social interaction and group interaction at the organization level is very useful factor. Openness experience. How open are you to new ideas? All right, how often do you seek out alternatives? How much intellectual curiosity do you have? These are important aspects of openness to experience. If you remember, this brings to mind one important aspect of transformational leadership. One bonus point to a person who can tell me which one is connected to openness to experience, which dimension of transformational leadership. All right. No one was able to say it. So I give the bonus point to myself. That was intellectual assimilation. So it's an important aspect of transformational leadership. Um, Openness to experience is not always useful. It's not always required and demanded. Certain type of job actually do not really call for openness to experience. So think about the examples of pilots or accountants. In most cases, they have to adhere to rules. They don't need to have a lot of creativity and innovativeness. They don't have to be creative. They have to just stick to the rules. So openness to experience is useful when innovation is one of the objectives. All right, let's go back to the previous slide. All right, big five personality traits. They're important because they provide us with some metrics to understand the fit between the type of job and the type of person. All right, that helps you to assess what type of person we need to hire. So if it's a call center operator, they need to have certain aspects, like high level of emotional stability. Let's watch this to see if this guy really has it.
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again? Oh, okay, well, the button on the side, is it glowing? Yeah, you need to turn it on. The button turns it on? Yeah. You do know how a button works, don't you? No, not on clothes.
Hello, IT? Yeah, huh? Have you tried forcing an unexpected reboot?
No, there you go. No, there you go. I just heard it come on. No, that's the music you hear when it comes on. No, that's the music you hear when it... I'm sorry, are you from the past?
You see, the driver hooks a function by patching the system call table, so it's not safe to unload it unless another thread's about to jump in there and do its stuff, and you don't want to end up in the middle of invalid memory. Hello?
Oh, really? Well, why don't you come down here and make me then? Huh? What, you think I'm afraid of you? I'm not afraid of you. You can come down here any time and I'll be waiting for you. I told her. Oh, God, it's about time you got back. It's been all go.
You had a job?
Girl on 5th.
Did you and her hit it off?
Define hit it off.
So for sure, he doesn't have the right personality to be a IT call center operator. The next set of personality traits that are important in the context of organizations and help us to analyze, dissect different personality beyond the 5 characteristics are cognitive and motivational concepts of personality. So cognitive properties are rooted in how we think. our thought processes and how we cognitively process, analyze information. Whereas motivational aspects of personality, they have to do with the way we get motivated, energized, and maintain behaviors over time. So the difference between these two sets of factors is um, the motivational concepts are reflected in basic needs rather than how we think. So the top three are cognitive characteristics, and the bottom two are related to our motivation. So locus of control, I don't think we need to focus on locus of control a lot here. We already talked about it in previous classes. How much do you think you have control over events? Are you in charge of things? This is from your perspective, or you don't think you have any control agency over them. So for difficult tasks and innovation, locus of control has to be internal, those people who engage in those types of tasks and processes. Whereas external locus of control, people have to be assigned to structured tasks. They don't see much of connection between their own action and success, so they have to engage in some type of routine task with a lot of supervision. The next one is the authoritarianism. I'm not sure if I can pronounce that A word. So people of high A, they are obedient people. They think that power distances and power differences are legitimate. They're fine. So in those types of culture and with those type of personality, the power is really important. It's what defines your status in the organization. By power, we mean formal power. And that's okay to see a huge gap based on power. And we are basically dealing with submissive people as subordinates. They're very submissive followers. Um, so this has to do also with the position, power, and the theory of contingency theory of leadership, if you remember from the past. The next slide has to do with this chameleon effect, chameleon-like effect, self-monitoring. So the basic idea here is people of high self-monitoring, they tend to change different faces. They have different appearances in the face of different situations and audience. And typically, this face that they show, it is a desirable face that people are looking for in different communities. So they're very attentive to social cues. They try to understand what a desirable behavior is like. In extreme situation, they can be two-faced. They can be hypocrites. But sometimes that's useful. So the example that I often use is a professor that I worked with as a teacher assistant. He would wear very nice shirts, obviously, and definitely long sleeve shirts, and there was a reason, with ties and jackets when he was teaching. But outside of the class, he was a biker with a lot of tattoos on his hands. And that was the community that he would connect outside of the university. And I think the bikers were not aware that he was a professor. But he would do both jobs really well. He would connect with students and with those bikers. So in many cases, they are useful for helping the organization overcome conflicts. And if you remember from the past, in one sort of network position, people of self-monitoring, high self-monitorings are very helpful. Um, I'll give you a bonus point if you can guess what type of position it was that could bring together different communities. Think for a moment. Another moment. All right, it seems that 4 or 5 people had the right guess. Yes, boundary spanners. But because I wasn't able to see you, I'll just give the bonus point to myself. All right. Motivational concepts. These again have to do with how we get motivated, not our thought processes. Some people are very competitive, achievement oriented. Some people are driven by being conformative. We will get to that. Achievement motivation is basically motivation that comes from competition. Some people they want to succeed in social type of situations. So they like to be in competitive situation. They get aspiration. They are persistent when it comes to competition, and they want to receive feedback, constant evaluation, particularly where they stand in terms of their position, their rank. Um, if you remember, I gave you this example earlier on from my study of Fitbit. Some people will really care about their Fitbit competitive features, which means the emails that Fitbit send every week and shows where they stand in relation to other social contacts, how many steps they've taken in comparison with other people. Some of my participants didn't really care about that. So achievement motivation wasn't a big deal for them. Approval motivation is somehow similar to chameleon-like type of effect. You want to be socially desirable in different situations, and that's the motivation for your actions. It's related to conformity, and you want to appeal to other people, you want to have their approval. And one really important point that I will touch upon in the last slide is about personality tests. Sometimes people fake personality tests because they want to have this approval motivation. Now, intelligence is the next important factor. Why is it important? Because it's another set of personal difference that is partly define our performance in organization. And it has to do with our mental ability to process, to handle information, complex information situation in knowledge intensive environments. Sometimes these concepts are very abstract and complex. And the final point here is intelligence is a controversial measure. There is no universal measure to assess intelligence, and some people have issues with unifying metrics for intelligence. But these are important dimensions of intelligence. How easy do you handle numbers? What is your verbal capabilities? Do you understand spatial, visual characteristics? In terms of deductive and inductive, inductive is when you can handle different evidence and based on those come up with your own theory of the world or your work. Deductive is when you can apply those theory. And memory is obviously easy to understand how you store and retrieve information and past experiences. Um, Another really important point here is not everyone has access to all of these, right? So some of them are actually mutually exclusive. It's not possible to have all of them at the same time. Another really important point, it's important to find people who may fit a given job situation based on certain personality characteristics. If you are a master of ceremony, probably you don't need to have a lot of number aptitude, but you need to have a very good verbal comprehension. If you're a programmer, verbal comprehension is not as important as number aptitude, right? So it depends on the type of job. But at the end of the day, the organization wants to have um, people of intelligence, right, along different dimensions. And that's a very important aspect of the concept of human capital at the organization level. You remember I talked about faking personality test. That's a big problem. So, and the basic idea here is people often, if they're smart, they realize what type of answer the test giver is looking for, and they give away that type of answer. And that's problematic because it doesn't allow us to understand their personality. Um, the common strategy that sometimes we use in tests is giving common statement that are undesirable. And if people give us the answer that is not very honest, you realize that they're faking the test. For example, if the statement is, I've never been untruthful even to save someone's feelings. So that's a very common situation. Many people would definitely do that. So if the person is strongly agree that shows that probably he or she is not very honest. When I'm getting ready to talk to someone I've never met before, I feel a little nervous. Or if I'm giving lecture to a big audience, I never feel nervous. So if the person says strongly disagree, that is probably the wrong answer. But the problem here is sometimes people do not really understand the question, or they have a very inflated perception about themselves. They're very optimistic, right? And the best example of that to end this lecture is Michael Scott from The Office. Hope you enjoyed this lecture. If you have any question, you have two options. You can keep it to yourself or you can email it to me. Well, the third option that well, I said two options, but the third option is bring it up in the next class. Take care. Have a good day or night.